If we have been socially engineered in America to be in the positions that we're in, why would we go hire a rapper? Go find a fucking engineer. Right. That's why we never have sustainable movements, because we want pretty, entertaining. Malcolm X said it. I don't want rappers on fucking CNN speaking for me. Go rap, nigga. Right. I want someone who can articulate.
That's actually not something Malcolm X would have been saying, because there were no rappers during his lifetime. And he was not, to my knowledge, ever critical of entertainers involving themselves in the world of politics. He was, in fact, looking to, as a fan himself of entertainers, he was looking to politicize them. The other thing, of course, is that Banner isn't acknowledging any of the, it seems to not at least be acknowledging any of the context in which all of this is.
Real solid fucking plans. I am one of the smartest motherfuckers in hip hop, period. I don't give a fuck what nobody say, but I don't even think I'm worthy to speak on behalf of the plight of black people, bro. I do it because I know a lot of these other motherfuckers don't give a fuck. But the reason why we don't get forward is because we don't have real sustainable plans. One of the things that pissed me off so bad that we did, and one of the mistakes that we made, is when Ice Cube stepped up
to build more
and literally created a plan for politics. And he said, I'm going to talk to Trump. Motherfuckers got mad. We always say we playing chess, not checkers.
The fuck is he talking about?
Okay, but Ice Cube having a black capitalist, conservative, business-minded plan that is in line with Trump is not a plan for black people. And it is not a plan emanating out of collective radical struggle. Banner is missing, apparently, I'm only seeing this little part of this episode, but apparently Banner is missing the larger context of political struggle in this country as it relates, in this case, to black people, where we're still in a post-COINTELPRO era, where organized efforts that had a lot of good plans and ideas were suppressed, leaving us in this political vacuum where someone like Ice Cube could be invited to step in and bring back a very conservative, black Republican, conservative, black capitalist agenda.
You're not gonna let the man play chess?
Right.
You talk to everybody. What people don't know is some of our greatest leaders in the world sat down at the table and talked to the Klan. If you don't want me in America, and you gonna put up $2 million for me to get the fuck out, and I don't wanna be here, then why can't we sit at the table and talk?
Again, so he's equating Ice Cube's black capitalist business plan with traditional or traditions of black radical political struggle or civil rights struggle, and making an allusion apparently either to Garvey or to Malcolm X. And if I'm not mistaken, each thought critically in reflection of engaging with white supremacists. I'm certain, in fact, I'm happy to be checked on this, but I'm certain Malcolm openly was reflectively critical of that. And I thought Garvey was too. But the point is that even if they weren't, the fact that historically people have done that this is a good idea, it doesn't make much sense to me. And it's also, it wasn't that Ice Cube was coming up with a plan to either repatriate black people back to Africa or to even establish something that would be good for the black collective here. So sounds like he's throwing a lot up against the wall to find if in the hopes that something would stick.
We talked to them white motherfuckers as rappers who we knew were accountants, who we knew that was lawyers and didn't give a fuck about the hood. And we sat down and found a medium, and that's how we created record companies. Why we can't sit down from a political standpoint and really have sustainable plans? Motherfuckers want to be emotional.
Full stop. Wait, is he arguing that black record companies were evolved because black people were willing to play some sort of 4D chess with white supremacists to get black record labels? That's a complete bastardization of the history, if I'm hearing that correctly. Black record labels have always ever existed as subsidiaries to white labels and were beholden to white investment, white corporate support, distribution deals, and so on. So, and they at most created a black bourgeoisie, a black intermediary class. that could benefit from the exploitation of the artists in their own community while producing even more untold wealth for the investors and corporations up the chain of command in terms of the ownership. He's literally advocating for black business ownership as opposed to organized workers. That is, again, that is a major part of the problem. The problem with what Ice Cube was doing wasn't that, it's not that we wanted to, or certainly that I or anyone critical of it wanted to be emotional. It's that we wanted an actual plan, and plans that would work for the entire collective don't involve black capitalism or deals with Trump or any, for that matter, the Democrats necessarily. But so this is an interesting take.
Really want a movement? I honestly think that most people are scared of freedom, real freedom, like they are scared of death. Actually, y'all, death may be better. No. Hold on, wait, Nori, wait, hold on. You don't know what the fuck death is, because you ain't died yet. You just don't want to take the chance of seeing what's on the other side.
Correct, because all evidence suggests that death is the end. So why would we want even if you are a person of faith who believes in an afterlife, why would you want the conservative version of that suggests not being concerned with what happens here and being more welcoming of death and moving to the afterlife? That's part of what I've always thought was the hustle of some of conservative approaches to religion or religion in general. Get people to focus on the hope of an afterlife so they don't fight enough here. The fact that people are afraid of revolution makes sense, but that's the goal, and the part of the struggle for revolutionaries is to make revolution less scary, or to make people more willing, or to encourage people to become more willing to engage in what's necessary to become revolutionary, but not to suggest the goal shouldn't be just give up and die in the hopes that since we don't know for sure what the afterlife brings, that maybe it'll be better. I mean, maybe it'll be worse, David.
But death might be better. You don't know. That is the reason why I created a banner vision. That's the reason why I'm gonna do science-based movies and sci-fi. Because they constantly are preparing us for a future without us.
All right.
So what I'm telling you is that if we really want to talk politics, most black people don't even know what they really want. When you talk to any other subsection in this country, they can tell you exactly what they're fighting for.
These comparisons, again, these comparisons are not only they're not accurate, they're not helpful. And then to the extent that there are differences between black communities and others, it has to do with this particular relationship black people have to the society that others don't have. So to make these comparisons and to say that we should be doing what other groups do is so much of the problem here as well. A lot of this seems to be just returning us back to some very old and simple formulations for assessing the situation.
If you ask 10 of our people, what do you really want out of politics? They don't know. And until we start paying, politics is a pay game. Until we start paying and then knowing what the fuck we want, without vision, what do our people do? They perish. My opinion.
So the idea is that without a vision, to simply try to get money together to pay politicians to then what? Create the vision then? See, this is exactly the backwards approach. The approach shouldn't be let's figure it out after we've gotten money together to buy the politicians. It should be let's organize ourselves, develop our platforms, develop our politics, develop even our politicians, leaderships, parties, etc. Then make a move for power. This approach is again more of the same. We have to get our money right before we can get our politics right, and that's probably why he likes the Ice Cube plan. But that's not that hasn't been demonstrated to be of any value politically ever, and in fact has been demonstrated to be the encouraged, preferred version of black politics from the perspective of the white ruling elite.
Do you think that hip hop still needs a union?
No. I let that sit there for a minute, just for ratings. Because we already gave hip hop away. I I told y'all a long time ago that streaming was the dumbest shit that we ever did in history. Dog, we finally started getting pennies.
All right, first of all, the premise is already wrong, and this is why, again, I want to encourage people to revisit some of the arguments that have been made around here regarding how we commemorate the 50th anniversary of hip-hop. I would really love to revisit the discussion around the hip-hop documentary I would like to see get made, but this is the idea that we had something, we're in control of something, and then gave it away speaks a lot to the mythology that is around that surrounds this history. Again, I think the foundational mythology around hip hop history, the narrative is wrong. It was never some autonomously controlled art form or cultural expression. From the very beginning, with Sylvia Robinson, from the very beginning, the commercial impact, the corporate structure, the cultural imperialist elements, all were there. The capitalist exploitation, all was there. So it hasn't always played out the same exactly, but this idea that we started in full control and then gave it away is part of the mythology. That's misunderstood.
And then you're gonna let these motherfuckers give us fractions? Watch this, it's gonna fuck your head up. You remember when the white folks went to war about movies? And them streaming movies? And
Oh, yeah, they boycotted. Yeah, the
Netflix
strike,
and
the
stuff,
strike,
yeah.
the right, the strike.
Watch this. Didn't they just do the same fucking thing to music? And
So wait a minute. He's standing up here to try to make an excitable point here, but he's just contradicted himself and missed the whole plot. You started off answering the question, does hip hop need a union, by saying no because we already gave it away, and then he's making this comparison to what was happening with the strikes in the movie industry when he's talking about a sector of labor that is itself unionized.
none of us said shit. Fucking Prince, T.I., David Banner, Snoop. I told you how stupid that was, and y'all called me crazy.
Yeah.
We gave hip-hop away. So what you bitching for now? And then they do it to movies. The only reason why they didn't let it happen to movies is because they still making money off of movies.
No, they didn't do it to movies because the people in the movie industry, the workers there, are unionized and went on strike and put up an organized fight.
Message.
Hip-hop being ununionized and powerless couldn't do the same thing. Now, the one thing he is somewhat right about, and that some of us were calling out from day one, was that streaming was not, the internet was not going to be the solution to the exploitative music industry, and wasn't going to make anything better. And in fact, he is correct. The last time I checked, that artists make less per stream than they made per CD sales back in the day, or spins on radio. So that part is true, but it's not because hip hop had already been given away and therefore doesn't need to be unionized. It's that technology doesn't change relationships, it intensifies them. So what was already an exploitative relationship in the music industry with CDs, tapes, albums, radio play just got exacerbated with the internet and streaming. That part was predictable. But the argument against that shouldn't be to be less organized with the idea that we've already given it away. It should be, as is the case in all sectors of the economy, it doesn't matter who owns it, who invented it, or whatever. It's the workers that are the ones producing it, and then therefore should benefit at minimum equally to those who own. But as he started with this affinity for Ice Cube's Black capitalist argument, part of that, embedded in that, is this idea that we don't need collective bargaining, collective unionized labor, or even better, collective ownership.
They hadn't sucked that totally dry yet. We had just found out how to create our first mom and pop stores, how to burn our own CDs, even though we was bootlegging. We had just learned, bro. I had just started getting $9 an album, dog.
Now, I would love to learn more about his contract claim here, because he's starting to argue that before streaming came in, we were getting our mom and pop stores together. Again, small Black-owned businesses is not a solution. And to what he's proving here is that so much of the evidence of small businesses not being the solution is how quickly and easily bigger conglomerates can come in and wipe them out. That's the whole point. But then the claim that he's getting $9 per album, that's wild. I can't imagine what distribution deal did he have and with whom, because that's a hell of a claim. Whoever made anywhere near that?
Understood BDS.
Bro, I didn't need but one more fucking album and I would have been a fucking multi-millionaire off music, dog. And I produced myself. And we let them motherfuckers. Bro, we gave it to tech motherfuckers who don't even care about music, who ain't even cool, dog. Shout out to all my tech motherfuckers who give me a lot of money. Yeah.
So, but again, this isn't really clear what he's saying here, and I'm not entirely sure that the hosts are following up with the appropriate questions, because hip hop was not given over to the tech community. It was always and ever owned by the same 3 record labels that own it now. What's been added to it is maybe this is what he means, are the 3 dominant distribution platforms for the music that's owned by the 3 dominant record labels. So it's Universal, Sony, and Warner, the 3 dominant labels to this day that own almost all of popular music. And then it's YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify are the dominant platforms for the streaming of those songs. And they have an incestuous relationship, as has always been the case between the record company owners and the distribution platforms. And the artists are always the most exploited. Black ones at the top of the list. So this idea that he was about to become a millionaire, so therefore we gave it away and should at this point not unionize, none of this is making much sense.
Y'all smart, but you ain't cool.
Yeah.
Bro, we gave fucking hip hop away. So don't bitch about it. Now ain't no need for a union. Now we gave it away.
Under the guise of independence. Everybody thinks they're independent right now using these tech companies.
Cool.
Right.
No, niggas want to be cool. That's our problem. I want to be paid, dog. I want to be free, dog. I don't care if you think I'm a geek.
So that's why black people are exploited, because black people want to be cool. This is really getting worse. But again, I want to reiterate this point that a lack of ownership is why you want to unionize the labor force. That's the case in all sectors of the economy. Workers don't own the businesses, don't own the means of production. Therefore, their only place of struggle is through unionized collective bargaining labor. So to tell black people and brown people, we've already given up hip hop, so therefore just forget it and don't unionize, is absurd. He should be saying the exact opposite. Now you need a union more than ever. Not only in the music business, but everywhere.
Niggas said I was crazy, dog. I told them that was the wrong thing to do. The God Box failed because I wouldn't stream my fucking album, dog. It's some stories I can't tell y'all about. When people from distribution companies call me and say, Banner, I need you to help me fight on this streaming shit. And then they got cut into the equation and then they didn't call me no more. You know who you are. I'm not gonna put you on Front Street. You still the hung.
But that's the same thing. Whether your distribution is through radio and CDs and cassette tapes and albums, or whether your distribution is through streaming, in each case, it is the same white-owned corporations that control that pipeline. So it doesn't matter. This claim that he's making that because he wouldn't stream, his album failed, may be true, but the point still remains. You had to make a deal with one of the handful of gatekeeping, platform-wielding corporations and entities to distribute your work.
But I remember that shit. They cut the right people in. They cut the right artists in, and they sold y'all out. Y'all motherfuckers want to be cool and make TikTok pictures and shit, and you broke. Motherfucker, reason why motherfucker always ask me, put out an album for what? I'm grown, nigga. I ain't making no because I'm gonna make quality music. I ain't spending 100,000 or fucking 500,000 like I did on the last God Box album, and y'all niggas giving y'all motherfucking money to these fucking tech companies. That's stupid. And until we as men, we gangster about dumb shit. But you ain't gangster about your fucking money?
So he's saying that instead of putting money into albums and creating good albums, artists have taken their efforts to TikTok and other platforms to promote themselves. Again, to the extent this is true, it speaks more to my point that the traditional avenues to popularize your work, which have always been controlled in a monopolized, wealth accumulated sector of the economy, those doors may have closed, so they're or are as closed as ever. So therefore, artists have been conditioned and convinced that the new avenue is through TikTok and social media. At the end of the day, the point is still the same. White-owned corporations and distribution networks largely determine who becomes popular. It has always been this way, and this idea that there was once this moment where Black people had this ownership of the art and gave it away is complete mythology, and it's really demeaning to the very community he's claiming to be speaking for.
About your life, about your culture. I don't play about.
And this idea that Black people are poor because we're not serious and because young Black people in particular just want to be on TikTok. The idea that young people are the cause of any of society's problems is itself, in every area, complete mythology and nonsense. So the idea that, again, here it's the fault of these artists and the choices of Black people at the bottom is part of this mythology that is a real problem.
About hip hop. That's why I don't do it no more. Cause I care about this shit too much. Niggas don't give a fuck about shit. Bro, I gave my whole life to this shit and this shit was a lie, dog. Y'all gave this shit up to them white folks and them tech companies. Now you butt ass hurt. And you wonder why artists who don't give a fuck make so much motherfucking money.
But that's always been the case. And wait a minute, what is David Banner recreating here as his own history? We can all go back and review his catalog. When was he not, for the most part, he's been as much a mainstream rapper as anybody else. Lil Flip records and all this other kind of stuff. Like, what is he, and if you really care about the art, you should be continuing to make it. You can continue to make the art and distribute it on your own without the same levels of fame and money, of course. But if you love the art and want to demonstrate how to do good business, you could do that in a way that is more sustained. Link up with Wendy Day and use your relative position to create some contract space. And, I don't know. But this whole thing of we should just give up and wait to die and not unionize. I mean, this is a wild, and this whole thing of when I was trying to be a revolutionary, y'all didn't care. So now I just quit. This is a wild, I'm really beginning this is again, one of those moments where I regret being asked to check something out, but
Because you didn't stand when it was time to stand. We let streaming, we wanted to be cool and stream.
And nobody let anything. This is the other thing that I was saying, railing about in my rants around the 50th anniversary of hip hop. One of the key omissions that dominant narrative has created is this idea that nobody was struggling. The entire hip hop political activist history has been erased. So all of the people, to a very small extent, myself included, who are arguing around organizing the hip hop nation and organizing politically and challenging for control of the art and the narrative of the history and all of that has been erased from all these commemorations and is again being erased here by David Banner, who wants to act like nobody was doing anything and just gave everything away. When the flip side could easily be said, when I was out there rallying and doing all the conferencing and writing around hip hop being this, that, and the third and what people should do and all that, where was David Banner? Making records, making videos. I'm a pimp. So, and at no point would I or anyone else say, well, because David Banner wasn't there when we were trying to do stuff, we should just quit and wait to die and never unionize. That is wildly absurd.
And look cool and all that kind of shit. And the niggas, look, I asked the motherfucker, if you was selling dope on the corner, you was getting $10 a bag, and the motherfucker said, hey, come and use my dope and let me give you 0.2% a penny. Would you do that shit? Fuck no, you be like, nigga, I kill you.
What he leaves out of that analogy is, of course, the fact that, among probably many other things, is that when the record industry comes to an artist who may be making small amounts of money, maybe making more per CD sold than they would cutting the deal with the industry, the trade-off is that the industry is promising you more overall CDs sold, even if you're getting a smaller cut. So because the goal is not to get a bigger cut off the CD you're selling and selling fewer CDs and only in your local community, the goal is to get a smaller cut of more CDs that are sold so that you become more famous and maybe even ultimately make more money despite getting a smaller percentage per CD sold. Therefore, that artist willing to sign that contract is not going to be thinking of this in the same way as they would another bigger dope dealer trying to rip them off, and therefore, as he said, leading that person to violence. They're thinking this is the trade-off I have to make to get out of the hood, to get rich and famous, and to hopefully have the fantasy that these industries are promising. So maybe a better form of the analogy would be if that bigger dope dealer came to the smaller dope dealer with the full celebrity and the shine and the bling and the honeys and whatever, and says, yo, you're making $10 per bag now, but you're only selling 100 bags. I'm going to allow you to sell 100,000 bags, even though you only make 0.2% per bag. You'll end up making more. Plus, you get to be famous. Plus, you get to be connected to me. Plus, you get all that means. You get the promotional campaigns. You get the best blocks to sell on. You get the better product to work from. You get the prettier bags to bag it up in. You get the security by being affiliated with me. That's the better analogy that would be made to help Banner's point, but then it would undercut the point he's trying to make and would support the point I'm trying to make. But all right, everybody, I'm going to have to leave it there, and I'll encourage you all can watch the full interview and put in the comments where you think I've missed something important, and maybe we can pick this up again. Again, a little bit of a sideways shout out to whoever asked me to check this out. A little bit more painful than I would have expected. Bottom line, we definitely need more collective bargaining, unionization, struggle around labor, questions about redistribution of wealth, more advocacy around the wealth being created by any industry being better used to help the people producing that wealth, not just owning it and collecting it. And we should never, ever, ever, ever allow someone to tell us in any area of the economy that we should not be unionized at minimum. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.